He thought I would never find out what he did, and for a while I almost believed that myself. But standing in that boardroom, with the heavy folder resting against my palms, I felt something shift. The quiet confidence that comes from knowing the truth was finally on my side. The room felt colder than usual as the overhead lights hummed softly, illuminating the polished table where all of this would unfold. I watched the managers glance at each other, sensing tension without understanding why. And across from me sat the man who had built his recent success on my work, pretending he had earned every bit of it. Daniel's eyes flickered toward the folder like it contained a live wire, and the nervous swallow he tried to hide only highlighted the guilt he carried. For weeks he had walked around as if untouchable, basking in the praise from the initiative he claimed to have developed. Now, as the evidence lay within reach, he seemed smaller than he had in the last few months. His hands fidgeted with his pen, tapping it softly against his notebook, betraying a restlessness he couldn't mask. No one else in the room knew what they were walking into, and I didn't blame them for the confusion. I had been quiet for a long time. The confrontation didn't begin with raised voices or dramatic accusations. Instead, I simply placed the folder down and took my seat slowly, allowing the weight of my actions to settle. The managers watched me carefully, uncertain. Someone finally asked the question that hung between all of us. What was this meeting really about? And all I said calmly was that I wanted to clarify a matter of project ownership. That was the moment the atmosphere shifted from tense curiosity to something deeper, something fragile. Months before this moment, my work life had been predictable and mostly peaceful. I was the dependable one, the person who took pride in accuracy and thoughtful execution. Coworkers often relied on me to refine slides, reorganize reports, or catch mistakes before they reached upper management. I wasn't flashy, but people trusted me. It was a role I valued because it suited my nature, quiet, consistent, thorough. I didn't need attention to feel successful. I just needed to know I was putting out work I was proud of. Then came Daniel, the coworker with the easy smile and the kind of charisma that made people gravitate toward him. He had a way of remembering people's favorite pastries and telling jokes that landed in even the stiffest meetings. It didn't take long for him to become popular in the office, the type of person who seemed to effortlessly rise through the ranks. He had joined a year after me, but he quickly made himself known, and just as quickly he made sure to align himself with the right people. At first I didn't mind the attention he got. His friendliness felt genuine, and he often praised my work. You're the real genius here, he'd say, giving me a half smile as he reviewed one of my reports. I'm just trying to keep up. I appreciated it because I wasn't used to receiving compliments for things I quietly put effort into, and in a way, his acknowledgement made me feel seen for the first time in a while. I didn't realize that his easy praise was also a way to learn how to use my strengths for his benefit. Around the same time, I had been developing an idea for a major company initiative. It wasn't a small assignment or simple improvement. It was a full-scale workflow redesign that would streamline client data processes. It was ambitious, innovative, and something I had poured months of late nights into. I believed in it deeply, and the more I worked, the more excited I felt, imagining what it could become for both me and the company. But I also kept it quiet, polishing it until it felt ready to share. One evening, while I was refining the visuals on the deck, Daniel stopped by my desk. He leaned casually against the wall of my cubicle, glancing at the nearly finished diagram on my screen. "Still here?" he asked with a teasing tone. "You're going to start getting mail delivered to this desk at this rate." I gave a small laugh and shrugged, admitting I was finishing up something important. He asked about the idea, and without hesitation I shared my excitement with him. It felt harmless, maybe even helpful, to let him see what I had created. His reaction was instant and positive. He stepped closer, studying the screen. "This is incredible," he said. "Seriously, management will lose their minds over this. You've got to show them." When I hesitated, saying it wasn't fully polished, he offered to help. "Let me look at the full deck," he said. "I know what gets their attention. I can help you shape the pitch." I believed him, and the next morning I sent him the entire set of drafts. That small moment of trust opened a door I didn't realize I should have locked. Looking back, the red flags were subtle but there. He began speaking differently about the project, calling it ours instead of mine. When people asked what he was working on, he vaguely mentioned he had some ideas in development without mentioning me. At the time, I brushed it off, thinking maybe I was imagining the shift. After all, he had been nothing but supportive up until then. I trusted him, and sometimes trust makes you ignore the signs you should have noticed. The betrayal unfolded in a company-wide meeting that I thought would be one of many brainstorming sessions. I took a seat near the end of the table, notebook ready, expecting the usual discussions. But when our manager announced that Daniel would be presenting a concept for the initiative, my pulse quickened. I wasn't prepared for him to present anything, and then Slide by slide, he revealed the truth I hadn't been ready for. The presentation was mine, not inspired by mine, not influenced by mine in its entirety. As the slides moved forward, each chart and diagram confirmed that I wasn't mistaken. The structure I had created, the layout choices I had made, even the notes I had jotted down to make the concepts easier to understand, all of it was there. Daniel spoke confidently, taking ownership of the idea in a tone that suggested he had crafted it himself. The room filled with impressed murmurs, and when he finished, the applause felt like a punch to the chest. I clapped too because I didn't know what else to do. After the meeting, the announcement came out. "Congratulations to Daniel," the company email read, "for developing and leading our new strategic client initiative." I stared at the message for what felt like an eternity. My idea had earned him a promotion. He had taken something that represented months of my hard work and used it to elevate himself. I should have felt angry, but what I felt was smaller and more painful, invisible. I kept working like nothing happened. I congratulated him in the hallway, pretending his promotion didn't sting. He smiled and said something about how brainstorming together had inspired the concept, a remark that made my jaw tighten. I didn't argue, though. I didn't want to appear petty or dramatic. So I swallowed the pain and kept quiet, even as each day felt heavier. For a while I considered letting it go, but something in me couldn't. Weeks later, while cleaning up old files, I stumbled on the original draft of the project. Opening it, I saw the timestamp and my name tied to every version. Curiosity pulled me further, and soon I was reviewing the entire version history. It was undeniable. My work was documented in detail. I moved on to the shared drive records, and that was when the truth crystallized. I found the log showing exactly when Daniel accessed my files. He had downloaded the full deck days after I shared it with him. As the evidence stacked up, the fog I had been living in cleared. I pulled up the deck he presented, comparing it side by side with mine. Nearly identical. A few formatting changes here and there, but the framework was untouched. It became clear that he hadn't collaborated with me. He had copied what I created and presented it as his own. That realization didn't hurt as much as I thought it would. Instead, it filled me with an unexpected calm. I finally saw a path forward. I began gathering the evidence meticulously, understanding that emotion wouldn't win this battle. Facts would. I took screenshots of version histories, saved audit logs, printed emails, and created a thorough timeline. I organized them neatly, labeling each piece so it would be impossible to dismiss. I reviewed everything twice, then a third time, ensuring I had the full picture. By the time I was finished, the folder held the truth he had hoped no one would uncover. Before taking action, I quietly confirmed details with a few trusted co-workers. Not gossip, just clarity. They remembered me staying late and showing them early versions of the idea. Their recollection supported the timeline I had created. Their comments weren't dramatic. They were simply honest truths that validated my memory. With everything in place, I requested a private meeting with our manager. I didn't accuse, I just asked for time to discuss a matter related to the project. The meeting was scheduled with Daniel present, which suited me perfectly. I walked into the boardroom calm, steady, and prepared. No anger, no desperation, just confidence in the truth. When the manager asked what the meeting was about, I opened the folder and began laying out the evidence. One page at a time, I explained the creation timeline, the file access logs, the draft comparisons, and the email where Daniel asked for the materials in the first place. As I spoke, Daniel's composure cracked. He shifted in his seat, tried to interject, and stumbled over explanations that didn't align with the evidence. He claimed he believed it was a collaborative effort, but the documents showed otherwise. Even our manager, who rarely showed emotion, looked genuinely disappointed. There was no shouting or dramatic moment, just a quiet unraveling of the story he had built around himself. When I finished, I calmly stated that I simply wanted the record corrected. I didn't demand punishment or retribution. I asked for fairness. That single request held more weight than any accusation could have. Our manager nodded slowly, acknowledging the clarity of the evidence. She explained that she would involve HR to review everything formally and inform Daniel that he would be temporarily removed from leading the project during the investigation. The aftermath unfolded quietly over the next few weeks. HR verified the documents, interviewed co-workers, and reviewed the digital trail. Meanwhile, I kept working, doing my job with the same dedication I always had. But it didn't go unnoticed that Daniel grew quieter, keeping to himself instead of thriving in his usual spotlight. The distance others began giving him was subtle but unmistakable. His confidence dimmed as the consequences of his actions slowly became unavoidable. When I was finally called into the manager's office, the outcome felt both surreal and deeply validating. The investigation confirmed that I had been the original creator of the initiative. It confirmed that Daniel used my work without attribution, and it confirmed that the promotion he received was based on misrepresented authorship. The company corrected the project documentation and appointed me as the official lead, granting me the visibility I had earned from the beginning. I didn't expect praise from coworkers, but I received it anyway. People congratulated me, some even admitting they had assumed I was behind the project all along. They seemed genuinely relieved to see the right person recognized. Being given the chance to lead the initiative felt like more than a promotion. It felt like finally stepping into the space I had always been quietly building for myself. As for Daniel, he remained at the company, but the shine he once carried never returned. He was removed from the project completely and placed on a performance plan focusing on integrity and accountability. People interacted with him cautiously, and he seemed to understand that regaining trust would be difficult. I didn't revel in his discomfort, but I didn't pity him either. He had made choices, and choices have consequences. Months passed, and the project succeeded beyond expectations. The client praised our work, and upper management highlighted it as an example of innovation and strong leadership. My name appeared prominently in presentations and company discussions. I didn't feel triumphant as much as I felt steady, grounded in the truth that had finally been acknowledged. My confidence grew not from the promotion, but from knowing I had spoken up at the right time, in the right way. One evening, as I packed my bag to go home, I received an email from Daniel. It was short and awkward. Apologizing for how things unfolded, he claimed he had been overwhelmed and made a poor decision, hoping there were no hard feelings. He suggested meeting for coffee to clear the air. I sat with the message for several minutes, feeling nothing sharp or bitter, just a kind of quiet closure that didn't require a response. Ultimately, I chose not to reply, not out of spite, but because some chapters close without a dramatic final moment. I didn't need reconciliation. The truth had already spoken for me. The record was corrected. The opportunity I earned was finally mine, and responding to him would have pulled me back into a story I no longer needed to relive. Silence felt like the most honest choice. As I walked to the elevator that night, I saw my reflection in the mirror across the lobby. I looked tired but settled, like someone who had weathered something challenging and come out stronger. I realized that justice doesn't always arrive with noise or spectacle. Sometimes it arrives in quiet meetings, organized evidence, and simple facts that cannot be denied. What happened taught me that success built on dishonesty doesn't last, and the truth eventually reveals itself in ways no one can predict. I didn't ruin his career. He did that himself by choosing shortcuts over integrity. All I did was shine a light on what was already there, and when the truth surfaced, it reshaped both of our futures in the way it needed to. I learned that speaking up doesn't require aggression. It requires clarity, patience, and steady confidence. It requires trusting that your work has value even when someone tries to take it. And it requires understanding that justice doesn't always look dramatic. It can be quiet, respectful, and deeply effective. Looking back, I don't regret a single step. I don't regret trusting Daniel at first because it taught me something important about discernment. I don't regret staying silent for a while because it gave me the clarity to gather the evidence properly, and I don't regret presenting the truth calmly because it shaped my reputation as someone who handles conflict with professionalism and strength. In the end, the project flourished, my career moved forward, and I felt more confident in my place within the company. And the lesson that stayed with me is simple: success doesn't always need to be loud. Sometimes the most powerful victories are quiet, measured, and rooted in integrity. And sometimes the truth speaks loudest when you simply lay it on the table and let it stand on its own.